Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars is likely one of the best RPGs of the 16-bit era. Released in May of 1996, just a few months before the N64 dropped, most people did not pick this game up or even know of its existence at the time. I picked it up on Christmas morning of 1998 when my dad got me a literal duffel bag full of bargain bin Super Nintendo games. He likely bought the game for pennies on the dollar at the time, and today the game goes for a bare minimum of $50. Lucky for me, I still have that card. Super Mario RPG is every bit deserving of the praise it has raked in over the decades, having beautiful graphics, fun and unique characters, an awesome story, funny dialogue, and a battle system that makes even grinding fun. That being said, the game is pretty easy too. There's definitely a baby's first RPG vibe going on with the whole thing. It doesn't necessarily hold your hand, but it does a really good job of telegraphing its boss fights. If you see a save point in an item store in a long platforming section and or a long dungeon crawl of monsters, it's safe to say there's a big fight coming up. But this is not to say the game can just be run blindfolded. It's definitely a game that was meant to sell strategy guides back in the day, because me and my sister would lament for weeks at a time just to figure out how to advance the story. Don't make fun of me, it was the pre-internet and pre-game facts age. How was I to know I had to open up a dialogue with Bowser in front of Booster's tower 3 times in a row to convince him to knock down the door? Also, after beating Croco, how was I ever supposed to know I had to backtrack all the way back to Mushroom Kingdom, buy the cricket pie, and then take it all the way back to Frogcucius just so I could get to the fucking Kiro sewers? Again, the moon logic at work in some of these 16-bit era RPGs is just straight up infuriating. That being said, the game does throw you some curveballs in the battle department too. When you fight Queen Valentina, your middle party member gets carried away at the start and you have to fight Dodo one-on-one. Or when you fight with Johnny Jones in the sunken ship. You fight him at first with the whole party, but eventually it just devolves into a one-on-one fight between Mario and Johnny. There's a lot of that classic trial and error gameplay at work here, and this is definitely a game that was meant to be way easier on your second run through. I recently replayed the entire game a few weeks back, and there was one part that I was dreading more than any other. One part that even if you see it coming, whether you're on your first run or your 10th run, even with a strategy guide in hand spread across your lap, it will kick your ass. I now present to you what is, in my opinion, the steepest difficulty curve in all of the 16-bit era. And no, I'm not counting Battletoads on the Genesis. That was a port of an 8-bit NES game, I'm not counting that. Fuck you. After beating the aforementioned Queen Valentina and saving Nimbus Land, everyone tells you of a mysterious star that fell into the Barrel Volcano. As the subtitle of the game suggests, you need to collect 7 of these things, and this is the 6th. I said before that boss fights in this game were well telegraphed, and this is no exception. Right off the bat, you're told straight up that you have to fight the Czar Dragon that lurks in the bowels of the volcano, and as you traverse the cavernous depths, you fight a few monsters that would have easily been boss battles earlier on in the game. Hell, some of the smaller monsters you come across even have one-hit insta-kill attacks. Those can send you straight to a game over screen if you're not paying attention. Happened to me like twice on my last run through. But after you trudge through the volcano, you get that classic Super Mario RPG tell. Item shop, save point, platforming section. In that order. And sure enough, at the end of that, there's the Czar Dragon. Now, the actual fight with the Czar Dragon is fairly straightforward. He has a mix of physical attacks and magic attacks that can attack single or multiple party members, and you're gonna have to do some probing to see what works against him, magic or physical attacks. Now, this battle is on par with all the other boss fights up to this point in difficulty, but after you defeat the Czar Dragon in this standard length boss battle, the dragon sinks into the pool of lava and the fearsome Zombone takes his place, and this part freaked 8-year-old me right the fuck out. Now you have to do a second boss fight of similar length and difficulty back to back with no break in between. Plus the damage tables and resistances have been flipped. If magic attacks were successful before, now he has a resistance to them and you need to switch up your attack patterns. Plus Zombone has many more magic attacks that are stronger and attack multiple party members. Which means if you took the strategy I took when I was 8, where you don't heal teammates and you just wait for them to pass out and then restore them to full health after they faint, then you're gonna get wrecked here. So your overall battle strategy that has been so brutally effective all the way up to the 6th of 7 stars has now got to be completely retooled. But okay, you finally beat Zombone. You see the star ahead of you, but the path from which you came from is also open. You can go back across the platforming section to a save point by backtracking, but why would you? Platforming on an isometric plane is hard and you've never been denied a star up to this point, so why not just waltz over and pick it up, right? Nope. The thing gets swiped by the Axem Rangers and you have to chase them down and onto their airship, the Blade, and get into another boss fight immediately after you've essentially just fought 2 in a row. And the Axem Rangers are nothing to fuck with either. They're color-coded like the Power Rangers. The black one has a speed of Kenyans and can attack twice. The red one is an even mix of physical and magic attacks. The green one has a lot of special attacks that attack all of the party members all at once and have status effects. The pink one recovers everybody, and the yellow one is a tank that can do some dirty physical attacks. In my last playthrough, I beat the Czar Dragon and Zombone on my first try. I knew this fight with the Axem Rangers was coming up right after it, and I still got killed off in the second turn. So you gang up on the Rangers and pick them off one by one until finally the Red Ranger decides he's had enough, and then we get a fourth boss fight in a row. The Red Ranger jumps onto the breaker beam, which attacks every member of your party with a super powerful attack that can do triple-digit damage. The only respite you get is that this is the only attack the breaker sends at you, and it takes a one-turn cooldown, kind of like the move Hyper Beam in Pokemon. The breaker doesn't have a whole lot of HP, but if you don't see it coming and you don't have all of your characters at near top health, it can end you in one turn. After you defeat the breaker beam, the blade sinks over the volcano and you finally get the star. And it is this marathon session of 4 boss fights in a row that takes the top spot as the steepest difficulty curve of the 4th generation console era. And if you think this game drops off from this point, then you are dead wrong. The whole game is essentially a series of never-ending boss fights from this point forward. And if you're playing this game blind for the first time, there is absolutely no way to avoid meeting a few of these game over screens along the way. From here on out, this game just gets brutal. It has no let up. It just keeps digging at you more and more and more until finally you beat Smithy and you get that 7th star. That's why this game, I think, absolutely has the steepest difficulty curve of any game of the 16-bit era.